So in this session, we're going to take a look at, so we'll start with some of the use cases of Postgres, and then we're going to talk about the enterprise data stack, where does Postgres come into the picture, different scenarios. And then we're going to talk about a very quick glimpse of the architecture of ADOC, Acceldata, and then how does it connect to Postgres, and then what are the prerequisites for this integration, and a quick demo of how to add Postgres as the data source. Moving to the next slide here. So Postgres is, a powerful open source tool, relational database tool, which is being used worldwide, and there are different. Acceldata has different customers in different line of business using Postgres for different use cases. For example, uh, financial services companies uses it for managing secure transaction or regulatory compliance. Similarly, CPG uses it for supply chain data. Telecommunication uses it for all detailed record or billing systems, right? So there are different companies in different line of business using the same Postgres data source for their different purposes, right? And on the same hand, there are there are different architecture that different companies has. Some uses Postgres maybe somewhere near to the landing zone. They want to bring the data from maybe from some file object storage or maybe string data. They land it to Postgres, and then it goes to the enrichment after that into some other data source. Or there could be other scenario where you want to connect um, our Postgres in somewhere in consumption. For example, there is a BI report, and you want to consume the data from Postgres. So in that case, your your Postgres is on consumption. So the net statement here is, so your Postgres can be used by companies in different line of business, and and those companies can use Postgres in landing or in consumption, or maybe in some different stage of a pipeline, right? But for Acceldata, it is very easy to connect. I mean, I'll show you the steps and the prerequisites for it, but it does not matter uh, like which line of business you are in, or where is your Postgres, whether in landing or in consumption. As long as you have the JDBC URL and you have the authentication credentials, you can connect to Postgres, and basically you'll be able to check the quality of the data that you have in Postgres, right? So if you have the Postgres in landing, that means you can check the data which is before enrichment, or you if you have uh, Postgres after enrichment, maybe that is in consumption. That means you would check the data after enrichment when you connect Postgres when it is in consumption layer. So very quickly, I want to talk about the architecture of the product here. So Acceldata has basically two parts of the product. The number one, which is the control plane, right, where we have the UI of the product posted, where the user, through the UI, the user basically defines the policy conditions, policy rules, quality checks, right? All of that basically drive that from the UI. And we have all the configuration of the policies stored there, uh, uh, and then there are APIs and SDKs through which you can interact with the control plane. But this part of the product is completely hosted in Acceldata's environment, right? It runs in Kubernetes cluster, right? Whereas the second part of the product goes to the customer environment, which is the data plane here, that has a processing engine and a processing agent, right? So what happens? This data plane get is also a Kubernetes cluster. I mean, this data plane software also gets installed on a Kubernetes cluster, but that Kubernetes cluster has to run on the customer environment. Why? Because this data plane gets the registered connectivity to your data sources. For example, Postgres is your data source, right? So what you want to do is you want to connect to Postgres and you want to check the quality of Postgres data, maybe in incremental, or maybe for data that you have, uh, like last 1 month of data or last 3 months of data, you want to check the quality. So what you do, you define the policy from here, and that policy, when it gets triggered to the data plane, when you define a policy for a data source that get and that policy is triggered from the control plane, that policy basically goes to this data plane as a Spark job. What it does, it consumes the data from Postgres. It checks for the quality of the data based on the checks that you have defined in the policy. It checks for the quality here because it has a compute engine here or the processing engine here. And then once it has completed its job, it sends the metadata or it sends the matrices or it sends the analysis to the control plane. For example, how many records has been analyzed and what is the, I mean, how many records are good, how many records are bad, just the counter of it that goes to the control plane, right? So with this approach, the data never leaves the customer environment. So this was a little highlight. I mean, we have a separate, I mean, this topic can be taken care as a separate top. I mean, this topic can be taken care as a separate topic or a video clip altogether. Let us know on the comment section. We'll try to create something for this. And then I want to talk about the prerequisites uh, for this integration. So what you need is a JDBC URL and with the host name and at which port Postgres is running and where is it running, okay? And then the credentials, the username and the password, and I mean, only the read only access, because we only read the data and for to check the quality. We don't write anything to the customer database system. And you need to whitelist I mean, and the customer needs to whitelist the communication between Postgres and the data plane. So this communication has to be whitelisted. Sometimes, or many times, we have seen customer has a firewall around the data source so that there is no communication from outside the world. But for that communication to take place, you need to whitelist the data plane VPC to the data sources so that the request can go through the firewall and it can read the data of Postgres. Coming back to this, I want to quickly take you to the product UI now and want to show you how does it look like from the product UI. So basically on this page, this is the I mean you are on the Acceldata product UI right now. So this is the register page where you register all your data planes, data sources, and everything. So on the register page, under data source, you will find the option of add data source. You click on add data source, and then you find the data source. There are a list of around 45 plus integrations that Acceldata has out of the box, right? Where you find Postgres, and once you select Postgres, it will ask you to name the connection. It'll ask you to name the connection, right? And it will ask you to select a data plane that is already created. So there is a separate video where we have covered uh, how to install a data plane, right, on a Kubernetes cluster. So that Kubernetes cluster can run on any of the three clouds or any on-prem, on-cloud services. That does not matter as long as you have the Kubernetes cluster. So once the data plane is selected, here. So you go to the next option, and here you have to provide the JDBC URL. As I have mentioned in the prerequisites, you need the JDBC URL with the host name and port name. So you provide that here, and basically you uh, provide the username and password to authenticate. Right? So I have a connection already created. So I can show you here. So this is the name, this is the connection that I've already created. So this is the name of the connection, and then you can write some description that's optional for you. And enable data reliability, select the data plane, go to the next page here. And this is the JDBC URL that I've provided here, and username and password. So you do test connection here. So this shows that a green signal that it is connected. And then you go to the next page. Here, basically, you want to enable query analysis. Yes. So when you run a query, whether you want to uh, draw lineage based on your queries, so that's the option for you. Here, you need to enable that and select the schema to which schema you want the platform to connect to. So when you select this, you can only run the policies and everything that are connected that uh, on the data that is present under this schema, right? And then what kind of environment that is that on-prem or is on RDS, right? And then there are some other options as well, which is for your crawler. So crawler is a job which basically when you submit the configuration, what it does, it basically fetches the metadata, how many, so under that schema or the database, okay. Um, so how many tables that you have, how many columns that you have, what are the name of those columns or tables. So that's a metadata that it fetches uh, after connecting to a source, right? So that's so first time when it does that, right? So if there are some incremental changes on the customer environment and you want to detect the schema changes as well. So for that, you need to run the crawler job on frequent basis, not very frequent, depends on your case, but you can enable the rerun of the crawler by the schedule option. And if that fails, there is another option to notify the crawler failing. So when you enable that, it will ask you to select the notification channel to whom, notify whom when the crawler job fails, or not whether you want to get the notification in the success case as well, and how to enable a crawler basically at which time of the day or which time of the hour, which time of the week you want to run the crawler. And so it depends how frequently the structure, the schema, your changes in your Postgres environment. Based on that, the crawler, and it's a very lightweight uh, job of crawler that just goes to the data source and fetches the metadata. So once you just submit, it will give you two options here, whether you want to go to the data sources directly or you want to start the crawler and then go to the data sources. So I'll just click on start crawler and go to the data source. So as soon as you click on this, it will say that crawler is started for this data source. So here, you are on the registry page again, and you can filter out based on the data source name. So basically, this is your data source, and there are two connections of Postgres that we have made here. Okay, so the crawler is completed. It says that fully crawled 1 minute ago. You want to check the status or something, so you can click on the icon here and directly go to the status of that job. And so it is completed, started, and finished. How much time that it has taken to complete. So that's your crawler job status. How to check that, and then what are the metadata that it has fetches. So basically, it says that when it has connected to when it got the connection and the crawl job has run, it has found that there are 6 tables under that schema. So schema, there was only one schema that was selected, and in the URL, the database Northwind was mentioned. So there were 6 tables in that, and there were around 46 columns altogether, right? So if you want to check the list of tables, so you just click on table and you will be able to see the tables here. So that's about it. That's how you connect to Postgres. And from here, there will be a separate video to how to run a policy on an asset, whether that is Postgres or any other data source. That will be a different video altogether. This is this is what we wanted to discuss in this video. Thanks for watching it.